Minecraft has a lot of ways to kill you. Some of them are obvious, some of them are sneaky, and some of them are just Mojang being creative at 3 a.m. But have you ever actually stopped and thought about how many different damage types there are in this game? Because there are a lot. Today we are going through every single one of them. What they are, how they work, and most importantly, how to avoid dying to them. Let's get into it. Fall damage. Alright, let's start with the most classic way to die in Minecraft. Falling. Fall damage is probably the first thing that ever killed you in this game, and honestly, it has probably killed you more times than you would like to admit. Here is how it works. You start taking fall damage after falling more than 3 blocks. Every block after that deals half a heart of damage, so the math is pretty simple. The higher you fall, the more it hurts. Fall from high enough and it is an instant death. No questions asked. Now, there are a few ways to avoid it. The most obvious one is a water bucket. Place water underneath you right before you land and you take 0 damage. It is one of the most satisfying moves in the game when you pull it off, and one of the most painful when you miss. Hay bales also reduce fall damage by 80%, which most players completely forget about. Slime blocks and honey blocks both cancel fall damage entirely, which makes them incredibly useful for building drop shafts or just messing around. Feather falling is the enchantment you want on your boots. It reduces fall damage significantly and is honestly one of the most underrated enchantments in the game. And if you are wearing a full set of armor with feather falling free on the boots, you can survive some genuinely ridiculous drops. The slow falling potion works too, making you float down like a feather with 0 damage on landing. Overall, fall damage is simple, deadly, and completely avoidable. If you are paying attention, which in Minecraft you often are not. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you want to. Fire damage. Next up, fire damage. And this one comes in 3 different flavors, all of which want you dead. First, there is direct fire damage, which happens when you walk into a fire block. It deals 1 heart of damage per second and also sets you on fire, which keeps burning you even after you step out. Then there is lava, which is a whole different level of painful. Standing in lava deals 4 hearts of damage per second, which is fast enough to kill an unprotected player before they even realize what is happening. And then there is burning, the lingering fire effect that sticks around after you have already left the source, just to make sure the job gets finished. Now, fire damage is one of those things that feels avoidable until it suddenly is not. You are mining, you break a block, and there is a lava pool right behind it. Gone. The Nether makes all of this significantly worse since lava is basically everywhere, and fire spreads on Netherrack forever. We can probably blame Notch for that one. Fire resistance is the single best protection against all 3 of these. 1 potion and you are completely immune to fire, lava, and burning for 8 minutes, which in the Nether is basically a requirement and not a luxury. Armor with fire protection enchantment helps too, reducing all fire damage significantly. Water puts out burning immediately, but you will not always have water handy, especially in the Nether where water evaporates instantly. Overall, fire damage is one of the most common ways to die, completely preventable with the right preparation and absolutely devastating without it. Drowning. Moving on to drowning, the damage type that has ended more underwater mining sessions than anything else. Here is how it works. Every player has an oxygen bar that appears when you go underwater, made up of 10 bubbles. Each bubble represents 2 seconds of air, so you have about 20 seconds total before the bubbles run out. Once they are gone, you start taking 2 hearts of damage every second until you either get air or die. And 2 hearts per second is fast enough to kill you before you even make it back to the surface if you're deep enough. Now, there are several ways to avoid it. Doors, signs, and banners all create air pockets underwater when placed, which is one of those mechanics that feels like a bug, but is completely intentional. Placing a door next to you while mining underwater gives you a free breath of air whenever you need it. The respiration enchantment on your helmet extends your underwater breathing time significantly, up to an extra 30 seconds at level 3, and also slows down the damage when you do run out of air. Aqua Affinity removes the mining speed penalty underwater, which does not prevent drowning, but means you spend less time down there in the first place. A turtle shell helmet gives you an extra 10 seconds of water breathing on top of everything else, and the water breathing potion makes you completely immune to drowning for the full duration. Conduits are the best long-term solution though. Place one underwater and it gives you permanent water breathing, night vision, and haste in a large radius around it. Overall, drowning is slow, avoidable, and yet somehow still gets everyone at least once. Suffocation. Suffocation is one of those damage types that mostly happens by accident, and when it does, it happens fast. Here is how it works. When your head is inside a solid block, you start taking 1 heart of damage every half second, which is 2 hearts per second, fast enough to kill you in about 5 seconds if nothing changes. The most common way this happens is getting teleported into a block, a piston pushing a block into your head, or simply logging back into a world where something has changed around you since you last played. Sand and gravel are the classic culprits though. They fall when there is no block underneath them, and if you are standing in the wrong spot when they come down, they land on your head and start suffocating you immediately. It is one of the oldest and most reliable ways to grief someone on a server, and it still works every single time. The fix is simple. Just break the block you are inside. One punch, and you are free. The problem is that one heart every half second does not give you much time to react, especially if you spawn inside something or get pushed in by a piston. Overall, suffocation is rare in normal gameplay, but absolutely deadly when it catches you off guard. Freeze damage. Freeze damage is one of the newest damage types in the game, added in the Caves and Cliffs update along with Powder Snow, and it is sneaky in the best possible way. Powder Snow looks almost identical to regular snow on the ground, which means the first time you walk into it, you have absolutely no idea what is happening. You sink in, your screen starts turning blue and frosty around the edges, and after about 7 seconds, you start taking 1 heart of damage every 2 seconds. The longer you stay in, the worse it gets. Skeletons are actually immune to freeze damage and will even seek out powder snow to stand in, which is a fun detail that makes fighting them in snowy biomes slightly more annoying than it needs to be. Leather armor is the counter here, and specifically leather armor, not diamond, not netherite. Wearing any piece of leather armor slows down the freezing effect, and wearing a full set makes you completely immune, which is genuinely one of the only times leather armor is the correct choice for anything. A full set of netherite and you still freeze. A full set of leather and you are completely fine. Classic Mojang. Overall, freeze damage is not something you will run into often unless you are in a snowy biome, but when you do, the leather armor detail alone makes it worth knowing. Void damage. Void damage is the simplest and most final damage type on this list. Fall below Y level -64 in any dimension and you start taking 4 hearts of damage every half second. There is no armor enchantment that reduces it, no potion that prevents it, and no way to survive it long enough to matter. It just kills you. The void is most commonly encountered in the end, where the entire dimension is essentially a collection of islands floating over an infinite black nothingness. One wrong step off the edge and that is it. The Nether has a void too, below Y level 0, but the bedrock floor usually stops you from reaching it, usually. In the overworld, the void exists below YY -64, but unless you're doing something very specific with commands or glitches, you are never getting down there in normal gameplay. The only real interaction most players have with the void is in the end, and the fix there is simple. Don't fall off. Elytra, water buckets, and ender pearls are your best friends near the edge. There is genuinely not much else to say about void damage. It is instant, it is unavoidable once you are falling, and it does not care about your armor, your enchantments, or how good your day was going. 4 out of 10 for creativity, 10 out of 10 for doing its job. Explosion damage. Explosion damage is one of the most chaotic damage types in the game, mostly because it comes from so many different sources and hits you before you even have time to react. The basic mechanic is the same across all of them. An explosion happens, and the damage you take depends on how close you are to the center of it and whether anything is blocking between you and the blast. Distance is everything here. Standing right next to an explosion versus 5 blocks away can be the difference between instant death and barely a scratch. Now, the sources. TNT is the most controllable one. It has a 4-second fuse after being lit, which is just enough time to run if you're paying attention. Creepers are the classic. They sneak up, start hissing, and explode in about 1.5 seconds. Charged creepers hit by lightning deal nearly double the damage and will absolutely ruin your day. Beds are one of the most famous explosion sources in the game. Try to sleep in the nether or the end and the bed immediately explodes with more force than TNT. Speedrunners use this on purpose to damage the Ender Dragon, which is either genius or completely unhinged. Respawn anchors do the same thing in the overworld and the end. Try to use one outside the nether and it explodes instantly. Gassed fireballs create an explosion on impact, and unlike most explosions, you can actually deflect them by hitting the fireball back. One of the most satisfying things you can do in the nether. Blast Protection is the enchantment you want on your armor. It reduces explosion damage significantly and stacks across multiple pieces. Overall, explosion damage is loud, fast, and completely merciless, but almost always avoidable if you know what is coming. Also, if you are enjoying this so far, a like really helps the video reach more people, takes 2 seconds, and means more than you think. Now, back to getting hurt. Projectile damage. Projectile damage is exactly what it sounds like. Something gets launched at you and it hurts. But there is a bit more to it than that. Arrows are the most common source, coming from skeletons, pillagers, piglins, and other players. The damage an arrow deals depends on how fast it is traveling when it hits you. A fully charged bow shot deals significantly more damage than a quick tap, and a power enchanted bow at full charge can take out an unarmored player in 2 hits. Critical hits are possible with arrows too. Jump and release the arrow at the peak of your jump, and it deals extra damage, which is one of those mechanics that separates good players from great ones. Tridents are the other main projectile, and they hit harder than arrows by default. A trident with Riptide lets you launch yourself through the rain or water, which is not a damage type, but is absolutely worth mentioning because it is one of the coolest mechanics in the game. Loyalty brings the trident back after throwing it, and channeling summons lightning on whatever it hits during a thunderstorm, which connects back to lightning damage, but we will get to that. Now, protection enchantments on armor reduce projectile damage along with everything else, but projectile protection specifically reduces it even further, and is worth considering if you're doing anything PvP related. Shields are the best counter though. A well-timed block completely negates arrow damage and even knocks the arrow aside. Overall, projectile damage is consistent, common, and one of the easiest damage types to protect against once you know what you are doing. Melee damage. Melee damage is the most straightforward damage type in the game. Something walks up to you and hits you. That is it. But there is a lot more going on under the surface than most players realize. Every mob and player has an attack damage value, and in Java Edition, there is a cooldown system. Your sword has an attack indicator that fills up after every swing, and hitting before it is fully charged deals significantly less damage. Spam clicking does almost nothing in Java Edition, which is something a lot of players coming from Bedrock Edition learned the hard way. Critical hits play a big role in melee damage too. Jump and hit something at the peak of your fall and you deal 150% of your normal damage. It is one of the most important mechanics in player versus player combat and the foundation of basically every PvP technique in the game. Mob melee damage varies wildly depending on what is hitting you. A zombie on easy mode is barely noticeable. A warden on hard mode is a completely different conversation. Armor is your main defense here, and the protection enchantment across all 4 pieces stacks up to reduce incoming damage significantly. Shields are incredibly useful too. A timed block completely negates melee damage from most sources and even knocks back smaller mobs. Knockback is another layer to melee damage worth mentioning. Getting hit launches you backward, which near a cliff or over lava turns a simple hit into something much more dangerous. Overall, melee damage is simple on the surface, but deep enough that mastering it separates average players from genuinely good ones. Magic damage. Magic damage is one of the most dangerous damage types in the game for one very specific reason. It ignores armor completely. Your full netherite set with protection of 4 across every piece does almost nothing against it. That alone makes it worth understanding properly. The Guardian Laser is the most well-known source. It charges up, locks onto you, and once it fires, the damage goes straight through whatever you are wearing. The only counter is breaking line of sight before it fully charges, which turns the whole Ocean Monument into a very stressful game of hide and seek. Evoker Fangs are another source. Evokers summon rows of snapping fangs out of the ground that deal magic damage to anything they hit. They are fast, they are unpredictable, and since the damage bypasses armor, even a fully geared player gets hurt just as much as an unprepared one. Instant damage potions, whether thrown by witches or brewed yourself, also deal magic damage directly to your health pool. Witches are surprisingly dangerous for this exact reason. They sit at range, throw instant damage to potions, and your armor does essentially nothing to reduce it. Now, the good news is that resistance potions and the resistance effect do reduce magic damage, and protection enchantments offer a very small reduction too, just not nearly as much as they do against physical damage. Overall, magic damage is rare enough that most players never think about it, but dangerous enough that when it shows up, it reminds you very quickly that armor is not always the answer. Sonic Boom. Sonic Boom is the Warden's ranged attack, and it is genuinely one of the most uniquely terrifying things in the game. If you are too far away for the Warden to hit you directly, it rears back, makes a deeply unsettling sound, and launches a sonic boom straight at you. And here is what makes it so special. It goes through walls, through blocks, through everything, and ignores armor completely. Every single piece of your netherite armor means absolutely nothing. It deals 10 hearts of damage on hard mode, which is enough to kill most players in 2 hits regardless of what they are wearing. The only thing that actually reduces sonic boom damage is the resistance effect, which you can get from a beacon or a totem of undying. Everything else is useless against it. This is clearly intentional. Mojang wanted the Warden to be something you never fight, and the Sonic Boom is the mechanic that enforces that. Think you can cheese it from behind a wall? Sonic Boom. Think your armor will save you? Sonic Boom. Think hiding in a corner is a good idea? You already know. The correct response to a Warden is never to engage it at all. Sneak everywhere, distract it with snowballs, and wait for it to despawn after 60 seconds of losing track of you. Overall, Sonic Boom is the single most punishing damage type on this list. Not because it is complicated, but because there is almost nothing you can do about it except avoid it entirely. Wither effect damage. Wither damage is one of the nastiest status effects in the game, and what makes it particularly horrible is that it turns your health bar black. Not just visually annoying, actually black, meaning you cannot see how much health you have left while it is happening. You are taking damage and you have no idea how close to death you are. The effect deals 1 heart of damage every 2 seconds and cannot be blocked by armor at all, similar to magic damage. It also cannot be countered by regeneration effects while it is active, which makes it significantly more dangerous than poison in most situations. The sources are fairly specific. The Wither boss inflicts it with every projectile it fires, Wither skeletons inflicted on melee hit, which is one of the main reasons the Nether Fortress is so dangerous, and certain potions can inflict it too. Milk is the universal cure and removes the effect instantly, which is why bringing a bucket of milk into a Nether Fortress is one of the smartest things you can do. The Wither boss itself is a whole different conversation. It has 300 hearts of health, flies, fires, Wither skulls in all directions, and the fight is widely considered harder than the Ender Dragon. Overall, Wither damage is dangerous mostly because of the visual panic it creates. Not being able to see your health bar while taking damage is genuinely stressful, and that is entirely the point. Poison effect damage. Poison is Wither damage's slightly less scary cousin, and the key difference between the two is one very important detail. Poison cannot kill you. It will drain your health all the way down to half a heart and then stop, leaving you critically low but technically alive, which sounds like a relief until you realize that half a heart means absolutely anything else in the vicinity finishes the job immediately. The effect deals 1 heart of damage every 2 seconds at the base level, and Poison 2 doubles the speed to 1 heart per second, which drains your health frighteningly fast. The sources are more varied than most players realize. Witches throw poison splash potions, cave spiders inflicted on hit, which makes the mineshaft spider spawner one of the more dangerous early game situations. Pufferfish inflict a very strong version of it if you get too close, and bees sting you with it if provoked, after which the bee dies immediately, which somehow makes the whole thing worse. Eating a suspicious stew with the wrong flower can inflict it too, which is one of those things that catches new players completely off guard. Milk removes it instantly, and the cleansing effect from certain potions works too. Interestingly, undead mobs like zombies and skeletons are actually healed by poison instead of damaged, which is worth knowing if you ever consider using poison potions offensively. Overall, poison is more of a setup damage type than a direct killer. It weakens you, leaves you vulnerable, and lets everything else do the actual work. Starvation damage. Starvation damage is the slowest and most avoidable damage type on this entire list, and yet somehow it still catches people off guard. Here is how it works. Your hunger bar has 10 shanks, and as you move, sprint, jump, and regenerate health, it slowly drains. Once it hits 0, you stop regenerating health entirely. Then, depending on your difficulty, starvation damage kicks in. On easy mode, it drains your health down to 10 hearts and stops. On normal, it goes down to 1 heart and stops. Same as poison. On hard mode, it will kill you completely with no mercy whatsoever. The damage itself is slow, half a heart every 4 seconds, which means it takes a while to actually finish you off, but it is incredibly dangerous in combat situations where you cannot afford to be at low health. Sprinting is the biggest drain on your hunger bar, which is why in early game survival, walking instead of sprinting everywhere is actually the smarter move. Food with high saturation is what you want. Steak, cooked pork chop, and golden carrots are the best options in the game for keeping your hunger bar full for as long as possible. Golden carrots specifically have the highest saturation of any food in the game, which most players never realize because they look completely unimpressive. Peaceful mode removes starvation damage entirely, which is one of the few genuinely useful things about peaceful mode. Overall, starvation damage is completely self-inflicted, entirely preventable, and yet still somehow responsible for a surprising number of deaths. Thorns damage. Thorns damage is unique on this list because it is the only damage type that hurts you for attacking someone else. The Thorns enchantment can be applied to any armor piece, and every time something hits the wearer, there is a chance the attacker takes reflected damage back. At Thorns 3, the highest level, the chance of triggering is 60% per piece, meaning a full set of Thorns 3 armor reflects damage on almost every single hit. The reflected damage is between 1 and 4 hearts, which is not massive, but adds up quickly in a prolonged fight. Now, here is the downside that most players ignore. Thorns accelerates armor durability loss significantly. Every time it triggers, it damages the armor piece that reflected it, meaning a full Thorns 3 set burns through durability at a genuinely alarming rate. Without unbreaking and mending, Thorns armor is more of a temporary weapon than a long-term solution. Guardian Thorns are a separate version of this. When a Guardian has its spikes extended and you hit it directly, it deals 2 hearts of damage straight back to you, which catches a lot of players off guard in the Ocean Monument. The damage is not affected by armor, which makes it another one of those annoying sources that bypasses your protection entirely. Overall, Thorns is a fun concept that works better in theory than in practice. Great for making enemies regret attacking you, not so great for keeping your armor in one piece. Lightning damage. Lightning damage is one of the rarest damage types in the game, simply because it relies on a thunderstorm, which you cannot control in normal gameplay. When lightning strikes directly on a player, it deals 5 hearts of damage and sets you on fire immediately, which then adds fire damage on top. So it is technically 2 damage types hitting you at once, which is a lovely combination. The chance of being struck directly is incredibly low in normal gameplay. Lightning picks random spots within a certain radius, and the map is large enough that it almost never lands on you specifically. Almost. Channeling is the enchantment that makes lightning actually relevant. Attach it to a trident, throw it at a mob during a thunderstorm, and it summons a lightning bolt directly on the target. This is one of the most satisfying things in the game when it works. It also has some interesting side effects worth knowing about. Lightning turns creepers into charged creepers, turns pigs into zombified piglins, turns villagers into witches, and turns mushrooms into brown mushrooms. So a single lightning bolt can completely transform a situation in ways you did not expect. Lightning rods, added in the Caves and Cliffs update, attract lightning strikes within a 128 block radius and redirect them safely to the rod instead, which is genuinely one of the most useful additions Mojang has made to the game in years. Overall, lightning damage is rare, dramatic, and comes with enough side effects to make it one of the most interesting damage types on the list. Dragon Breath damage. Dragon Breath damage is one of the most visually dramatic damage types in the game, and also one of the most misunderstood. When the Ender Dragon swoops down and breathes on you, it leaves behind a lingering purple cloud on the ground called Dragon's Breath. Standing in that cloud deals damage over time, and the longer you stay in it, the worse it gets. The damage type is classified as magic, meaning it bypasses armor just like the Guardian Laser and Evoker Fangs, so do not think your full Netherite set is going to save you from standing in a purple cloud on the ground. The dragon itself can also do a direct breath attack while perched on the exit portal, shooting a continuous stream that deals rapid damage if you stand directly in it. New players almost always make the mistake of running straight at the dragon while it is perched, walking directly into the stream, and dying embarrassingly fast. The smart move is to approach from the side. Now, Dragon's Breath has an interesting secondary use. You can actually collect it with a glass bottle while it is on the ground, turning it into a Dragon's Breath item. This is the only way to craft lingering potions, which are the thrown potions that leave a lasting effect cloud on the ground. So the dragon is not just trying to kill you, it is also handing you a crafting ingredient at the same time, which is oddly generous. Overall, Dragon Breath damage is dramatic, magic-based, and a lot more dangerous than it looks. Cactus damage. Cactus damage is one of the oldest and most straightforward damage types in the game. Walk into a cactus, take half a heart of damage per second. That is genuinely the whole mechanic. No status effect, no armor bypass, just a plant that does not want to be touched. It also destroys any item that lands on it, which is the more important detail for most players. Drop something near a cactus and it is gone forever, which has caused more inventory heartbreak than the cactus damage itself ever has. In normal survival gameplay, cactus damage is barely a threat. You see a cactus, you walk around it, problem solved. The desert is not exactly hiding them. Where it gets interesting is in mob farms. Cactus has been used for years as a cheap and reliable killing method in automatic farms since mobs walk into it without any pathfinding awareness whatsoever. A ring of cacti around a collection point will kill spiders, zombies, and most other mobs efficiently and with zero maintenance required. The item destruction is the downside there too, though. Anything the mob drops that that lands on the Cactus is gone, which makes loot collection slightly unreliable compared to other methods. Cactus also cannot be placed next to any other block, which limits how creative you can get with farm designs. Overall, Cactus damage is the most humble entry on this entire list. Half a heart per second, destroys your items, and has been quietly useful in farms since the very beginning of the game. Not exciting, but reliable. Sweet berry bush damage. And finally, the last damage type on this list, and arguably the most embarrassing one to die to. Sweet berry bushes deal half a heart of damage every half second when you walk through them, which is actually faster than cactus damage when you think about it. They also slow you down significantly while you are inside them, which means you cannot just run through quickly and hope for the best. You are stuck, you are slowing down, and you are taking damage the entire time. The slow effect is what makes them genuinely dangerous in the right circumstances. If you are being chased by something and you run through a berry bush to escape, you have just made the situation significantly worse. Foxes are completely immune to sweet berry bush damage, which is one of those small details that makes them one of the more charming mobs in the game. Everything else suffers. Most mobs will actually avoid berry bushes entirely when pathfinding, which makes them surprisingly useful as a natural barrier around a base if you plant enough of them. They're also one of the few renewable food sources that require zero effort. Just walk past occasionally and collect the berries without even breaking the bush. Now, sweet berry bushes were added in the Taiga update, and Mojang clearly added them at 3 a.m. because making a food source that actively punishes you for harvesting it manually is a very specific design choice. Overall, sweet berry bush damage is small, slow, and slightly humiliating. A perfectly fitting way to end this list. And that is every damage type in Minecraft fully explained. From falling off a block like a beginner, all the way to getting Sonic boomed through a wall by a blind monster that heard you breathing. Some of these you will never think about again, and some of them will start showing up everywhere now that you know what to look for. If you enjoyed it, drop a like and let me know in the comments which damage type has killed you the most embarrassing number of times. And if you want more videos like this one, the next one is already up. Go check it out. Subscribe if you are not already, and I will see you over there.